Hi, it's Sandy Wyllie. Welcome to my mental health channel, Inside My Holes, where I wipe away the stigma of mental illness by talking about my own personal struggles, having borderline personality disorder. I talk about my struggles having post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety and panic attacks, depression. I talk about my narcissistic mother who severely abused me, my schizophrenic father who was in and out of mental institutes my whole life. I talk about my unethical psychologists that raped me and abused me, all the different types of therapy I've been in, and just a plethora of other mental health related topics. But I only come on as a former patient of almost 20 years. I am not a licensed therapist. I do not hold a degree in psychology, so I cannot diagnose you or give you a professional opinion. And all I ask in turn of you is please be kind to me, be kind to other people who comment. We don't need to agree on everything, but we do need to show respect always and kindness in the comments. Now, if you are new to my channel, welcome. Please hit that box in the lower right-hand corner that says subscribe. It's 100% free, and that way you'll be notified of any new video I do. If you're new to my channel, I already said that, I'm getting old. If you like what you see, just hit the thumbs up button. That way there I'll know which videos are popular and which ones flopped, so I can do more of the popular ones. Now today I'm going to talk about why do I catastrophize. If you're not familiar with that term, catastrophizing, that means blowing everything out of proportion to what the situation really is. Thinking the absolute worst scenario. Here's an example. If your boss is displeased with something you do, and he tells you that, I really didn't like the last job you did. Someone else might say, okay, I gotta work a little harder the next time, so, my boss won't be disgruntled. But if you catastrophize like I do and like other people do, you might take his unhappiness and displeasure and think, oh my God, my boss is unhappy with me. If he's unhappy with me, that means he'll fire me. If he fires me, that means I'll have to get another job. I'm 59 years old. How am I ever going to get a job at my age? I'll never be able to find a job. If I can't find a job, how am I going to pay my bills? I'll lose my house. I'll be homeless. I'll be out on the street. You see? Blow the whole thing up out of proportion. A person who didn't catastrophize would just say, oh, my boss didn't like the last project I worked on. Let me try to work a little harder on the next project so, he won't be unhappy. But they won't think they're going to lose their job and they'll never find another job, and then you're going to lose their home, and then they're going to be homeless. They won't catastrophize that. They won't blow it out of proportion. Now, catastrophizing can wreak havoc, okay, on our mental health. It's cognitive distortion. That's what it is. Cognitive is with the mind. Cognitive distortion. Jumping to the worst possible conclusion of something. And, that can make you have severe anxiety, panic attacks, insomnia, depression. So catastrophizing really wreaks havoc on your mental health. Here's an example how I catastrophized. I really messed up my son completely by doing this. It wasn't intentional. I wasn't doing it intentionally. My very first mammogram when I turned 40, was it 40 or I think it was. I think you have to get your mammograms when you're 40. They found something suspicious on the x-ray. And I got a call, and the doctor said, we see something here, and we need you to come in. And I went berserk, of course, oh my God, what's going to happen? I'm going to die. I'm only 40 years old. What's going to happen to my handicapped son, Alex? He's going to lose his mother, and I have a young son. Austin wasn't that old back then. What's this? This is almost 20 years ago. So Austin would have been 6 years old because he's 26 now. So I went in and they told me they see something and they only think it's a 20% chance I could get cancer, but I need to get biopsy. Well, when I heard the word biopsy, I relate biopsy to cancer because that's the way my mother instilled in me when I was younger. My mother's sister died in her early 50s of brain cancer. So anytime I hear biopsy, and she always instilled in me, biopsy always means cancer, 100%. So I grew up in a chaotic home where my father and my mother always taught me to expect the worst. So I kind of grew up in that environment anyway. You know, my parents were very high stress, high octane, chaotic, crazy making people who, ran around like chickens without a head on. They weren't calm and, we'll take care of this. They didn't deal with anything maturely and calmly. So that's why I'm like I am. I also, was very poorly abused in my childhood, but that was, that's in other videos. So when I found out that I had it was a 20% chance of breast cancer, which means I had an 80% chance that it wouldn't be breast cancer, but they wouldn't know unless they did the biopsy. So I had a scheduled biopsy. So I thought I was going to die. I really said, I'm dying. I'm dying of breast cancer. It's going to spread to my brain. I'm not going to see my sons grow up. Austin was only 6. I'm not going to see him, graduate high school or college. I'm not going to see him get a girlfriend, drive, get a full-time job. I'm not going to see any of the milestones. I mean, I'm only 40, and I just said, I took him out of school. I told him his mother might be dying. I did all this because I really believed I had breast cancer because the doctors wanted to biopsy me, and I catastrophized it into something way out of proportion and had myself dying of breast cancer, even though the doctors told me I only had a 20% chance of breast cancer. Now, someone else who didn't catastrophize things like me would say, well, if my doctor tells me I have a 20% chance of breast cancer, that means I have an 80% chance that I don't have breast cancer, right? 80% that you don't. And they would look at those odds instead of, the 20% chance that I do. I kind of like reversed it. I acted like the doctor told me I have an 80% chance that I will have breast cancer instead of 20. I reversed it. And I acted accordingly by taking my son out of school. He missed school. He thought his mother was dying because I was acting every day like I'm on death's door because I needed this biopsy. The doctor says he sees something suspicious mass of cells. I've got to have breast cancer. They said I have a 20% chance of breast cancer. That's high. It turned out it was benign mass of cells. But I catastrophized it in such a way that it affected my son. He was taken out of school. He thought his mother might be dying. I just couldn't retain all that. I couldn't suppress all that. I'm the type of person that can't keep anything inside of me. I don't know if you guys are like that, but a lot of people are very stoic and they can keep everything to the vest. I'm the exact opposite. I'm like frantic, and I can't, I'm the exact opposite of that. I can't hold anything back. So if I'm upset about something, everyone in a few feet away of my radar is going to know, and it was very hot. I couldn't sleep. I drank like a fish. I drank alcohol very heavy. I had myself dying. Now, what makes someone catastrophize? Of course, I grew up with that, so it probably, but I think a lot of people like to prepare for the worst, you know. That way there they feel like they have more control over the situation. Rather the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And it feels like you're in control because you're prepared. You know, you're prepared for combat. Like always prepare yourself for the worst kind of news kind of thing. Because if you, that way there you won't be shocked and devastated when you finally do get that news. If I prepared myself for dying and having breast cancer from that biopsy, then if the doctor came back and told me that it did come back malignant and I did have breast cancer, I was already prepared. I already knew. I was already prepared. Now, if I didn't think the worst and said, oh, I'm not going to think the worst. I'm going to be positive, all right? I'm not going to think. There's only a 20% chance of breast cancer. That means there's an 80% chance that I won't have breast cancer. And then the doctor came back and said, yes, you do have breast cancer. It's malignant. Then I'd be in complete shock because I did not prepare myself for the worst case scenario. Of course, I don't think it would matter either way. If you get devastating news, does it really matter if you expected the news or you didn't expect the news? It's still the same news. It's still devastating news, whether you expected to hear it or you didn't expect to hear it. I don't even know if it really works that way. So this is what catastrophizing is, and it is just totally. And I do it all the time. That was just one example of me catastrophizing. I catastrophize over, like, I'll give you another less, less dramatic example. I got an email yesterday. My handicapped son, as you all know, if you watch my other videos, you've been watching me for a while, he has traumatic brain injury from meningitis, an illness he got when he was 4 years old. He is an invalid as a result of that illness. And he lives in a group home for severely handicapped men. Now, we got an email yesterday from an auditor who audited the place the residence that he lives in. And they said, could Mr. and Mrs. Wyllie, could you please give me a call? I need to talk about your son. Well, automatically, I went berserk. I said, oh my God, something is going on with my son. Because last time, this is also the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder. Last time someone called about my son, well, there was a few times, really. The last time he was severely sick and hospitalized because he had low sodium, and he was acting very aggressive. The time before that, he was brutally beaten by a staff member. So anyway, anytime I get a phone call about my son, I always suspect, or an email regarding my handicapped son, I always expect the worst case scenario, because in the past, that's exactly what has happened, the worst case scenario, where my son was hospitalized, and they said they almost admitted him to ICU because he was very low, he had very low sodium. And the other case where he was brutally beaten and hospitalized because he had bruises because a staff member beat him. So when I saw this, I went berserk. I said, oh my God, my husband was in a meeting, and I'm trying to call him out of he was the leader of the meeting. He couldn't come out, and I was, walking and pacing the floors, thinking something terrible has happened. The auditor wants to talk. Why does the auditor want to talk to us about our son? There must be something going on at that group home that is, very, very bad, or they want to shut it down, or there's, something, there's negligence or abuse or something going on there. Why does the auditor want to talk to us? Anyway, it turned out the auditor just wanted to know how we felt about the place and what we'd like to see improved. That's it. It was just a routine question an auditor asks. How do you feel? How do you feel about the program your son is in? What would you like to see improved? And that was it. My husband was on the phone with him all of 2 minutes, but I was thinking that the auditor is calling because they want to close the place down, or they found neglect, or they found abuse. But also, I have a history of that with my son in these places. So you could catastrophize if you have post-traumatic stress disorder from, if you have bad experiences with something from your past, you can expect the same in your present. See? If you have only positive experiences from your past, then you probably only think positive things because you have nothing to build that off of, right? It's all our past plays a major, major role in what we think in the present. Like, why would I catastrophize anything like that, if I had only good things with my son from these places, these institutes? If I only had positive experiences, why would I think the worst? You see, it's because of my past, because I've had very negative experiences in my past, that I assume it's going to be negative again, because that's how it's always been. So how do we get over catastrophizing? God, I mean, it's ingrained in me, It really is. I always think the worst, and I always had thought the worst, and I really don't know how to, I can try to take a step back and think, okay, now hold on here, take a step back. Remember this time when you thought you had breast cancer and it turned out benign? Remember this time with the auditor and you thought something was wrong with your son's placement and it wasn't? You just wanted to ask some routine questions. So you can try to rationalize what happened in the past and try to think back and say, it didn't always end up horrific or a catastrophe or bad. You can try to, use rationalization. But with someone like me, who's overly emotional person, who has severe anxiety, severe depression, it really doesn't work that way. The only way I do is just, get the alcohol and start drinking and thinking, because drinking stops the thinking. So when I drink, it kind of like, shuts off the thoughts in my head. I'm not trying to encourage people to drink alcohol. I'm just saying, the way I do is I try to keep very, very busy. If I'm starting to catastrophize and think, all these terrible things, I try to keep myself very, very busy. And that way, I'll think less, because the time will go by because I'm busy doing, I'm doing what I'm doing, doing these videos, writing articles for LinkedIn, newsletters, publishing poems, or, exercising, cleaning the house, or whatever, doing yard work, just staying hyper busy, hyper active. So I won't let my mind get ahead and race away. My thoughts race away with me. Let me know if you have this problem catastrophizing. Let me know if what you do, if you found any solutions that work for you. What it's been like for you when you get news. Do you always jump to the worst case the worst case scenario, or do you put things in perspective and be able to wait patiently and not just jump to the worst case, the worst possibility it could be, and how it impacts your life? Like I said, it impacted my son because I took him out of school. I told him his mom was dying, so it really has a negative impact on my life, and the people I love, it has a very negative impact on too. So let's have an ongoing discussion. I love your comments. I welcome your comments. I'll always, except if I get, tons and tons of comments like that, so much I can't possibly answer them, but that hasn't happened yet. So I do answer all comments. And let's talk about this. All right, till next time.